All right, Mr. Barr here. Let's talk about adding and subtracting rational numbers. Rational numbers, that is a fancy way of saying fractions. Oh, and you can't read that. And if you go back into other math classes where you learned about fractions, you know that when I'm adding or subtracting fractions, it is all about the common what? The common denominator. In order to build common denominators, I use what I call a fancy one. The fancy one. And this is what a fancy one looks like. Ooh, ready? 2 over 2. What is that? Oh, that's a 1. It's a 1 that's fancy. How about 8 over 8? What's that? It's a 1. It's a 1 that's very, very fancy. Well, oh, you want a very, very fancy one? Look at this guy. 2,398 over 2,398. Oh my goodness, how fancy is that one? That one has a house in the Hamptons. Oh, check. Oh, you want fancy? This is the kind of one that lives up in Aspen or something. Dude, you know what, parents? If you have a cabin in Aspen, I am not bagging on you. Good for you. Or the Hamptons, or I don't know what, Martha's Vineyard. Dude, I am not a fancy one. I live in Mentone. So x squared over x squared, or 3x squared over 3x squared. That is a very, very fancy one. All right, hey, let's actually do some math now and stop talking about our vacation houses. Here's our first one. Negative 1/2 plus negative 1/5. Common denominator here. I need to take both of these denominators up to 10. Well, how do I take a 2 and turn it into a 10? I'm going to hit this with a 5 over 5. That'll give me a denominator of 10. I'm going to hit this guy with a 2 over 2. That'll take me up to a denominator of 10. Excuse me. Using my fancy ones to build the common denominator. 5 times negative 1, well, it's negative 5 over 10 plus negative 2 over 10. And now it's just an integer problem. Negative 5 and negative 2, negative 7 over 10. Why are we doing this? Because I need you to be experts at this. Fractions, we're going to keep working with fractions, and it needs to stay in your head. So I'm trying to get this knowledge back into your brain. Here's the next one. Adding some mixed numbers. A couple of different ways to deal with this. But I think the way that is going to get us the best results is to convert each of these into improper fractions. I am going to use a calculator for this. So improper fraction, I'm going to go 2 times negative 236 plus 1. Actually, ignore the negative for a second. So this is 236 times 2 plus 1. 473. So I have negative 400. Wow. Let's try to write a 4, not a 7. Negative 473 seconds plus 962 times 5 plus 3, 4,813 fifths. Now I need to get up to my common denominator. I'm going to do that by multiplying this by 5 over 5. There's a fancy 1. And 2 over 2. Also a fancy 1. Going to go back to the calculator here. (2,365 tenths), keeping it negative, plus negative 9,626 tenths. Still keeping it negative. Doing the integer work up here. So 9626 plus. Notice I'm not using negatives. I'm keeping track of the negatives in my head. So now I'm at 11,991 tenths. Man, seriously. Now I need to convert this back into a mixed number. So I'm going to do that by, how many times does 10 go in there nicely? Well, okay, divided by 10. So it's 1,199 and 1/10. 1,199 and 1/10. I know, this turned into a mess. This is why you work in pencil. I work in pen so you can see it on the video. And then it turns into a mess. Now, my calculator can actually handle fractions. I'm going to try this with my calculator. So negative 236 and 1 half minus 962 and 3. Did I mess that up? I'm scared now. 3/5. Negative 1,199 and 1/10. Yay! Let's do another one of those. Okay, coming back to the calculator work. Here we go. So 869 times 2 plus 1, that's 1,739. $763 times 5 plus 2, 3817. Common denominator is going to be a 10. So let's hit this with a 5 and a 5, a 2 and a 2. And work down here. That's going to give me 8695 over 10 with a negative on it, plus 7634 over 10. Integers, those combine to become negative 1061 over 10. And that's going to become negative 106 and 1/10. All right, practice this, practice this, practice this, practice this, practice it, practice it.